All right, hey everybody, we're here talking about Unmaking a Murder again. Today we're here talking about Strategy 4. Strategy 4 is plant evidence. Because you know if you don't have the evidence to convict the guy that you're already told in the FBI that is your murder suspect, then you better get to making it appear, right? Anyways, so he goes over basically that he goes through the account of Brendan's confession and, you know, what's supposed to have happened, supposedly, according to Brendan. And he talks about how multiple teams of law enforcement officials and officers and everybody and cadaver dogs or whatever, all these, you know, teams were going around the Avery property and they never found any of Teresa's DNA or blood. They spent a long time there. Guys, they spent multiple days, multiple teams, I mean, a huge crime scene, everybody looking, and they found nothing, okay, until later in the garage, but we'll get to that. But they found nothing except for what was in the back of the RAV4. Now, the reason why you recount Brendan's story before you talk about this is, where is the blood? So anyways, he breaks this up into sections. This particular strategy breaks it up into 5 different sections to deal with 5 different particular pieces of evidence. So the first one is section 1, which is Teresa Hallback's RAV4 being planted. He goes into how it's found, you know, where it's found. You know, he even goes on a little later in a later section when he's talking about the bones. He talks about a witness that actually witnessed 2 Manitowoc Sheriff cop cars that actually went and went through the barrier on the Cuss Road on the 7th, which the bones were found on the 8th. So we know there's some kind of monkey business going on there. So, but we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, so he goes over how the RAV4 was found, the way it was, the fact that there was so many problems, like, you know, there was the way the blood was, you know, why there was no blood or anything really around the steering wheel, no fingerprints and whatever. So anyways, then he goes on into section 2 where he talks about the blood that was planted in the RAV4, and that's where he talks about, you know, obviously the blood vial, which obviously I have issues with, because me personally, I get tired of listening to everybody talk about the hole in the tube. It's like, no, forget about the stupid hole in the tube. It's not about the hole in the tube. It's about that broken evidence tape. Because, you know, if somebody was authorizing that vial in an authorized fashion, that they would have had no problem getting new evidence tape and redating it and resealing it. And I'm sure that is what somebody was supposed to do. And I just heard Kratz in a radio interview suggesting that the reason why the evidence tape was broken was because of the nurse that opened it to test the blood. Well, that would have been an authorized opening, Ken. And it would have been a simple matter to get new evidence tape put back on that. And to act like it's not a big deal to put evidence tape back on stuff, you know, or something like that, if that's the way that they choose to go with this, or to refute this, no, you don't do that, especially with blood, with somebody's blood. You kidding me? You just leave it without evidence tape. Anybody and their brother could get in it. Are you kidding? No. Sorry, none of that works. So the blood vial has always been a huge deal, but not because of the hole. Okay, so I just want to say that. Not because of the hole, but because of the broken evidence tape. That's the problem. Like I said, if it was accessed in an authorized fashion, it would have been a simple matter to get new evidence tape and redate it for the date that it was opened. So that story doesn't fly, Ken. Anyways, so then we move on to where he mentions me, Eric Jose, the YouTuber here, and because I had sent him some documents where the other problem I have with this file is Ken Kratz and his lies about it. Because on December 6th of 2006, the defense, that means Jerry Buting and Dean Strang, announced their discovery, that they had discovered this vial, that it existed, and all that stuff, and then that they wanted to get you know, they had to go check it out. When they checked it out, there was obviously some problems, and obviously Kratz realized these problems, and suddenly he's in there with Judge Willis begging for the chance to be able to do the EDTA testing, to please give us a chance to meet this planning defense. You know, we're so caught off guard, we didn't know about this blood vial until now, until December 6th. Lie. Ken Kratz knew about it. He knew about the vial, and he knew about it on February 6th of 2006. That's 10 months before he's claiming in the motion for EDTA testing. So he's trying to claim that he had no knowledge of it, that he even tries to claim that the defense has known about it for several months already at that point, when he knew about it since February. So yeah, so that's what I sent him. It just plays more into the whole blood vial, because Kratz, you know, and his slimy little theatrics and what he does and the way he is. So so that's what I had sent him. And like I said, that blood vial is a huge problem. Ken Kratz keeps trying to explain it away like it's not a problem, but it's a huge problem. Like I said, the evidence tape being broken is inexplainable to me. If it was open in authorized fashion, you'd be able to get new evidence tape and redate it, and then no problem. And I'm sure that there's not some lax regulations over there where they're like, no, it's fine, we can leave vials of blood unprotected and without any evidence tape. It's cool, you know. No. So anyways, so then we move on into Section 3. Section 3 is the bullet that was found in the garage. Now, we all know this bullet was not found on the original searches in November, right after the RAV4 was found. We know that this bullet was found after they bullied Brendan into his confession on March 1st and got him to change from where he originally said she was shot, which was over by the burn pit. On March 1st, they got him to change that and say, no, Brendan, no, Brendan. We know it was something. There was something with the garage. There was something with the garage, Brendan. You got to tell us. You got to be honest with us, Brendan. What was going on with the garage? And that's when Brendan moved the shooting of Teresa Hallback in the head into the garage, but it started at the fire pit. So because Brendan does that on March 1st, that gives Wiegert and Fassbender and Calumet the probable cause to go ahead and go back into the Avery property and go back into that garage, and that's when they suddenly mysteriously find this bullet. Now, there's a few things about this, is that when I see the pictures of that bullet, there's no dust on that bullet, but there's dust everywhere on the floor. So how did the dust fall under the bullet that was the slug that was sitting there? How'd that happen? And then none really on the bullet. So there's issues with this bullet, but that's, you know, they bully Brendan into changing where this happened, and then suddenly they get into the garage and suddenly they find this. So it's always been suspect. It's always been an issue. And let us not forget, James Lenk was there that day. Just like Lenk or Colburn was present every time evidence was found. So anyways, so now we'll move on into Section 4. Section 4 is the Teresa Hallback's key, which is extremely strange for many reasons. You know, it goes over that the fact that there was many searches in this trailer, and there was many searches in Stephen Avery's bedroom, even though Ken Kratz now says that that's not the case, even though we can see a video of Wendy Baldwin walking through the trailer, opening up closets, opening up drawers, reading Stephen's mail, you know, and being generally not targeted in her search. But yeah, Ken Kratz is claiming that they went in for very targeted searches up until the day of the 8th when the key was found. Yeah, so it doesn't work, Ken. Ken, we've all seen that video of Wendy Baldwin going through there like a nosy neighbor. You know, just give me a break. Yeah, targeted. Sure, Ken. Anyways, so he talks about a witness that lives over like on Cuss Road that saw 2 Manitowoc County Sheriff's vehicles go up to the blockade that was there on Cuss Road. Now they had asked this person to watch that road for them. The Calumet officers and stuff had asked for them to watch, make sure nobody went in or out, and if anybody did, to let them know and whatever. So upon doing this, they On the 7th, they saw somebody go in. It was 2 Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department cars went, moved the barrier, went inside, and then eventually came out sometime later. They let Calumet County know about this, and Calumet County came back and just said, oh, yeah, no, it's no problem, no big deal. 2 Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department vehicles alone, unsupervised, okay, went into the property through this on Cuss Road, and without anybody observing them. Obviously, that's the problem here, right? Because if there's not a Calumet County officer with these 2 vehicles that are going in late at night, what were they doing? And why was there not a Calumet County officer with them? So just suggests more, sinister doings, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So then we'll move on into section 5. And section 5 is basically to the bones. The bones. You guys know, hey, I've got a video about the bones. There's so much wrong with what happened with the bones. But we'll go ahead and talk about what Shaun goes through here. He goes through the fact that they were improperly collected. Yeah, not forensically collected at all. I mean, if you're trying to prove a case that Stephen Avery burned this woman in the fire pit, then you got to collect the bones properly, the way they lie, so that people can see, oh yes, she was laid in this way and these bones were found here, so that you can say that the way that the bones have been laid out will go along with your theory that she was burned there. But the way it looks to most everybody else right now is that those bones were dumped in there. That they were just dumped in there, and that there was no rhyme or reason to the way they lie, and they didn't want anybody, in my opinion, they didn't want anybody with an expert opinion that could come in there and suggest that the bones weren't, that the body wasn't burned there, that those bones were just dumped. They didn't want that, because that would go against their narrative. So that's always been the way I felt about it, and that's basically what Shaun goes over here is that the collection method was bogus. It was completely ridiculous, and they didn't call for a crime scene tech Ertl for, like a half an hour before they decided to call him and all that. And, and no pictures taken, it's just, yeah. Then you move on to the fact that they barred the coroner. First of all, they didn't tell the coroner, but then they barred her. They barred her from the crime scene when she showed up because she saw it on TV. So she gets her pack and whatever and comes over there to help, or whatever, and they bar her. Now, keep in mind, the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department coroner was the single branch of MCSD, of Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department, that had no conflict of interest with Stephen's 1985 case. That's important. The sole branch of the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department that had no conflict of interest was barred from being on the Avery property, and possibly, strengthening their claim about the bones, because at least she could have been an expert eyes there. You'd had some kind of expert's eyes that were there, not just, Mark Wiegert and some of the officers trying to trump up their, fire, whatever it is, like, because they have some kind of fire certifications or whatever, and trying to trump that up into making that makes them like an arson investigator or whatever. I don't get it. Because you would think if they were qualified to do that, they would have done it in a more qualified fashion. That's all I'm saying. But, yeah. So he then goes on to the fact that there was really only 60% of the bones were found in that burn pit. Or, well, total, in the barrels and over in the quarry pile. That only 60% of the bones were recovered. And it goes over to the fact that there's an expert that says you can't burn a body like that. It would take like 10 or 12 hours to burn a body in an open fire to get that kind of degradation on the bones to where they degrade to that level. So, 8 or 10 hours, 6 to 10 hours that it would take. I'm sorry, but I've even heard more than that. I've heard that it's even more than that. I've heard that there was cases where somebody tried to burn a body for over a day in an open fire, and they didn't get anywhere near the kind of degradation that are on Teresa's bones. So, yeah, it just doesn't work. You're not supposed to be able to burn a body like that in an open fire and get it to where you only have 60% of the bones remaining. So, And then he just basically, the last part of section 5 is him talking about Zellner's press conference, talking about what all that Zellner's doing, the things that she's trying to test, and all that various stuff. So he kind of leaves that in there at the end. So that basically covers strategy 4, planting evidence. So hey, everybody, get out there and get a copy of this book. It's really, really good. It's really well done. It's very well, all this stuff is documented, by the way. You can find all this stuff in the documents and in the news reports and stuff. So, it's based in fact. And like I said, with Shaun is selling his book, but his book, the proceeds are going to help other people and not into his own pocket. So, hey, if you get the spare $15, hit it up. This is a really good book. It's really, really good. Check it out. And that's about it for Strategy 5, people. And if you haven't already, please hit subscribe.